Hey guys, what's up? Reman80 here, and today we are going to be doing the weekly recap for week 1 of PICA Season 2. Now, I'm gonna be the one doing the weekly recaps every week. I may have a guest sometimes, but for the most part, I think it's just going to be me alone. But with that being said, let's get right on to the first match of this week, which was the South Park Electrodes versus the Atlanta Braviary. This match was very back and forth. This was not a hit for hit fast match. Like, it didn't end in 15 turns, but it was a decently short. It was a decently lengthened match. So right away, South Park Electrodes lead off with Azumarill, while the Atlanta Braviers lead off with Etran. And from then on, the tempo kind of shifts back and forth between the two players. Helios goes down to Noivern from a combination of Air Slash then Draco Meteor. I'm not really sure why he let Helios stay in on a Draco Meteor. He could have two easy switch-ins and things like Fortress or Azumarill, but he may have thought that Ty may have overpredicted and thus would go for a different move. But I think both those would have been safe switches in on the Noivern. Anyway, afterwards, more switches happening. The Tempest is trying. Tempest continually trying to get momentum. Ty continually trying to get momentum. It bounces back and forth. Eventually, Ty is forced to sack off Wheezing against Tempest because Wheezing was the least useful mon in this team. So it dies to an ISO crash from Mamoswine. Some more switches happening, and then it's Mega Sableye versus Mega Slowbro. Mega Slowbro gets a good chunk on Mega Sableye and is able to get the burn on Mega Sableye thanks to a Scald. During the turn the Scald happened, Sableye unmega'd, goes for a Calm Mind, which means it got the Frankster boost in that. And then after that, it goes for a Dark Pulse and almost kills the Mega Slowbro. And then the Mega Slowbro flinches and then proceeds to die to a burn it gained earlier in the match. But then Azumarill comes in to revenge it, and then it's 4-4 even. Afterwards, Scrafty is in against the Noivern. Knowing that Scrafty was most likely fully especially defensive, it eats up an Air Slash from the Noivern and is able to go for a knockoff to take out the Noivern, putting Tempest into the lead. However, Ty brings in his Cresselia and probably kills the Scrafty with a Moonblast. Again, I'm not really quite sure why Tempest didn't switch out at that point. I guess he saw that this wouldn't be as necessary for the rest of his team, and looking at the monsters they had left, being Heatran and Chestnut, and it being at 24%, I can see why he would do that. But maybe if he predicted the Moonblast, he could have been in a favorable position and killed off Cresselia without having your Azumarill take so much damage. So anyway, Azumarill comes in to take an Energy Ball from the Cresselia and then kill with a knockoff, showing that it was actually an offensive Cresselia with an Assault Vest. And then comes Chestnut to wall the Azumarill. Tempest switches out of Azumarill into his Fortress, which was the only switch in at this point to Chestnut. At this point it's 3-2, but things are all set up for Life Orb Heatran to sweep the last 3 mons in the team. First killing off Fortress with a Lava Plume, then killing off Mamoswine, which was actually adamant and not jolly, just to get some key kills. The Mamoswine dies to that Lava Plume. And then afterwards, with Azumarill at such low health, it dies to a Flash Cannon from this Heatran. So this battle ends in a 2-0 victory for the Atlanta Braviers. Overall, I thought both teams played very well. The Atlanta Braviers just brought a few wacky things that were able to throw off Tempest enough to where Ty was able to win off the game. If this is to set precedence, I do think Ty is so far the most dominant person in the Ruby division, as I'll talk about the other guy later on. But if this is to show what things are to come, I think Ty is going to be a pretty dominant battler, at least for the most part. His team is very well drafted, and I think he's going to be able to make some noise this season in the PICA. Next up, we have the second match of the week, which is the Middle-earth Magmortars versus the DMR Shadow Absols. The Middle-earth Magmortars brought Talonflame, Kyurem Black, Mega Manectric, Exeggutor, Swampert, and Rotom-Mow. The DMR Shadow Absols brought Megalotari, Azelf, Thundurus Incarnate, Staraptor, Quagsire, and Ditto. I just realized that I didn't say what the other match had, like the Pokemon they had. Oh well, it's on the graphics. But it was my fault for not mentioning it. Hopefully I can do better than that. Anyway, this was the offensive team versus the offensive team, and I think both of these teams played really well this match, but one of them had to win, and the Middle-earth Magmortars were able to take it. I think they just posted enough offensive pressure, along with a good mix of things that could take hits. For example, there was a Rotom-Mow was able to take Sludge Waves from a Thundurus Therian, not Incarnate, because the DMR Shadow Absols made a mix-up and thought they had Therian instead of Incarnate, which has now been fixed. He now knows he has Incarnate, so that shouldn't happen again. But yeah, the Rotom was able to take Sludge Waves from Thundurus Therian and was able to pain split his way into making Thundurus Therian have such low health that he can just go into Exeggutor and threaten out Thundurus Therian with the possibility of it being scarfed, as well as the possibility of it just killing it off with even an Iron Head at that point. Speaking of Rotom-Mow, there was a very interesting exchange in the beginning of the game. First off, the first two mons, the leads mons for both those teams switched out immediately into. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. Cedric switched out into Quagsire, and Josh switched out into Rotom-Mow. And then from there, Cedric switched out from Quagsire into Ditto, and then Ditto used Imposter on the Rotom-Mow, and Rotom-Mow that turn went for Thunder Wave, which meant it was immune. So then the Ditto went for Volt Switch because it's scarfed, and so it Volt Switched into Thundurus Therian, and Thundurus Therian ate up the Volt Switch. So I just thought that was a pretty funny exchange that happened. Overall, this was kind of a blow for blow match. Not it was more, yeah, it was kind of blow for blow. Megalotaria did a decent amount of work on against Josh. Josh had to always be careful not to let Megalotaria sit up for free, like too freely, or else he would have gotten swept. But of course, Talonflame was always there to stop Megalotaria from setting up too much, because Banded Brave Birds are super powerful. Overall, this match was very, 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 very close, but I think Josh always edged out a win from the from after that exchange with Rotom-Mow. He kind of just edged out his way slowly to victory, wearing down things like Swampert with Toxic, as well as taking out some key threats like Ditto and Azelf and Staraptor pretty early on. Overall, good match, and I think both of these competitors will do pretty well this season. I just think that Ty was a little bit more dominant in his match against the South Park Electrodes than Josh was against the DMR Shadow Absols, which is why I think Ty is going to be more dominant in the Ruby division than Josh will. But this is all speculation. It could all change soon enough. Anyway, guys, let's get on to the next match. Next up, we got the third match that happened this week, the Berkhamsted Bastions versus the Iowa Focus Energies. Berkhamsted Bastion brought Darmanitan, Amicom, Aromatisse, Zapdos, Tentacruel, and Crobat. The Iowa Focus Energies brought Magneton, Hydreigon, Lantern, Donphan, Weavile, and Togekiss. Sorry for the sniffing, guys, in this video. I'm kind of sick. So if I sound weird, that's why. Anyway, this game ended in a 4-0 for Nick of the Iowa Focus Energies. Nick just kind of offensive pressured Gargaflop and the Berkhamsted Bastion. Magneton and Hydreigon kind of just destroyed the team with some help from wall support from things like Lantern and Donphan. Overall, this was kind of a very one-sided match. There was never a point where I thought that the Berkhamsted Bastion kind of regained power. Though they did try a lot. And I will commend Zapdos for living so many hits from the Magneton, but you can only live so many. I think he didn't really. The Brighamside Bastions didn't really prepare for Magneton. I don't really blame them. Magneton wasn't. I would never think of Magneton as too big of a threat, but when you have nothing to really take Electric Stab that you at least brought, let me just quickly check their roster to see if they do have something they could have brought that could have taken Electric Stab. They could have brought Sceptile, Mega Sceptile, that could have taken Electric Stab. They could have brought Garchomp, they could have brought Magnezone. And that's about it. They don't really have anything else that could take an Electric Stab. So Electric may be a weakness they may need to look for. May need to look at. But yeah, Magneton scores 2 kills. One on the. I'm trying to remember what. One on the Aromatisse, and then. I think it was. I'm trying to remember what else. What else it killed. I think it was one on the Ambipom. Yeah, one on the Ambipom. Hydreigon managed to kill the Tentacruel as well as the Crobat. Donphan was able to take out the Zapdos with an Ice Shard, and Lantern was able to kill off the Durantane with a Scald at the end. Durantane managed to take out the Togekiss, and Ambipom managed to take out the Donphan, but this was all in vain because Nick just did really well in this match. It was very. It was. I hate to say it, but it was one-sided. I think the Brighamside Bastions still need to get into the groove of their team, and I'm sure they will. Gargleflop is a good player, and I'm pretty sure that he will start to get wins. This is just a rough start for him. But with that being said, let's get on with the next match. And so the next battle we have is the Jackson Jumplups versus the Denver Dashers. So this was actually the last match that happened this week, but this was the next match in order of sides I made, so I decided to put this here. Also, I want to save the match that I thought was the best for last, so I'll leave that for the last one. This match was a pretty interesting one. These are two of the newcomers into the PICA, and pretty much the draft league format in general. I mean, Pokebeats has had some practice, but not really any legitimate practice. And this is Jesus' first time in a draft league, so this is gonna be pretty interesting. And for the first few turns, it seems pretty standard. Everyone's making the plays you'd expect. And then on turn 4, predicting at turn 4, Nidoking is currently in on Tornado Starion. Now, Nidoking is Scarfed and has the ability to Ice Punch or Stone Edge, killing the Tornado Starion after either Life Orb or just in general killing it. Predicting him to switch out, Pokepiece goes for this Poison Jab to catch the incoming Suicune. Is probably what he was predicting. Though this was a very questionable play, as I don't think the Denver Dashers. I don't think Gzus knew it was Scarfed, so he just assumed he'd have speed and get Hurricane damage off on something because nothing on his team really appreciates Tornado Starion. So after the Poison Jab, Hurricane happens and kills off Nidoking, which was a very crucial moment to Pokepiece's strategy, and thus begins the down spiral for Pokepiece. After that, Galvantula goes down after setting up webs. Jesus makes a questionable play by not killing it with Tornado Starion, even though he had the chance to, and instead killing it with Rotom by switching out into it and then going for Shadow Ball, revealing that it was Scarfed. After that, Gyarados comes in because it's locked in the Shadow Ball right now, and it can start setting up Dragon Dances. However, that's very questionable because there's a Suicune right there that pretty much walls you to hell and back. And so Suicune puts a talk on the Gyarados and begins chipping away at it. And although Socrates made a point about this in the power rankings, which are actually going up earlier than the weekly recaps this week, why do you bring I do question why Jesus brought Tailwind when his team pretty much outspeeds Pokebase's team in general. Like Jesus has has brought most of his fast spawns. The name on that wasn't that fast is probably a Scarf like Rotom, or Suicune was the only one that was kind of slow. everything. I guess it was just to counteract sticky webs, but even then, it's not like sticky webs. Sticky webs weren't the worst thing ever for your team, though it does help the Jackson jump lifts out. Anyway, uh, Jesus actually teched in extreme speed on Suicune just to make sure to kill the Gyarados faster, and extreme speed plus toxic eventually kills the Gyarados, but the Gyarados is able to whittle down the Suicune to the point where Machamp is able to take it out with a, I believe it was a Zen Headbutt. It was a Psycho Cut. Don't want to miss, you know. Anyway, Rotom comes in to try and counter it, he switches into Skarmory and actually gets the special defense boost. Skarmory whirlwinds out the Rotom, and Zoroark comes in. I think actually the Rotom swapped out, and then the Pokemon that came in got whirlwind out, and then Zoroark came in. And thanks to the special defense drop, Zoroark is able to kill the Skarmory. And so it's basically and then Zoroark is actually able to Grass Knot and kill the Seismitoad, leaving only Mega Medicham left. At that point, the Jackson jump was forfeited and left the match. Later on, it was agreed that the Zoroark would have died to the Mega Medicham because it was slowed down by the Sequibs, and then Rotom would have finished it off with a Shadow Ball. So this ends with a 4-0 in the Denver Dashers' favor. Pretty much a very commanding win for Jesus and the Denver Dashers. The Jackson Jump Hosts didn't really do much. They couldn't really handle the Denver Dashers, and thus they were kind of stopped by them. Overall, I think the Jackson Jump Hosts came in with a plan, but they just couldn't execute on the plan. The Denver Dashers, on the other hand, capitalized on them not being able to execute it, and thus kind of won out. The Denver Dashers did have the team matchup, so I did think they would win that match, and they ended up doing so. So, I'm sorry, Pokebeast, but hopefully you can get them next week. And with that being said, let's get on to the next match. And the next battle we have is the battle of the Philly Shuckles versus the Chelsea Shandies. Now, this was a match I was pretty excited for. It's not the match I was thinking was the match of the week. That's the next match, but still, it was going to be a pretty good match. And the match ended, and the Philly Shuckles have Kingdra, Jirachi, Politoed, Cobalion, Tornadus, Incarnate, and Run and Wash. While the Chelsea Shandies have Snorlax, Mega Gardevoir, Hitmontop, Gengar, Landorstarian, and Vileplume. And this match ended in a 4-0 in the Chelsea Shandies' favor. One of the biggest problems that the Philly Shuckles had was that they didn't really have enough for the Chelsea Shandies' walls. Here's an example. Cobalion defeated Snorlax. But the Chelsea Shandies had him on top the wall of Cobalion. But the Philly Shuckles had Tornadus Eye to beat out him on top. However, Tornadus Eye was walled by Snorlax, and it was just kind of an endless loop of those four mons switching out on predictions. And eventually though, the Mikey and the Chelsea Shandies were able to wear down most of the offensive threats that the Philly Shuckles had. Kingdra really went down without doing anything. That's kind of weird. He would send out Kingdra to take a return, which actually crit, which means he was already under half health, and since he was at Life Orb, he only had like 4 hits left, which was annoying for him, and ended up with Kingdra not having that much to do because Kingdra kind of just died. Politoed was destroyed by Gardevoir's Hyper Voice. Jirachi was just kind of defeated by. I imagine can't remember what killed Jirachi. I think it was Snorlax. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Snorlax. Let me just check. But yeah, Jirachi kind of just went down to Snorlax without much happening. Jirachi, Tornadus Incarnate, and Rotom Wash all went down to Snorlax. At the end, it was just Snorlax. It was 4 mons and with against Rotom, and Snorlax was at like plus, I don't know, 4 on with curses. So there was no way Philly Shuckles were coming back. But the Philly Shuckles kept on fighting. They kept on making the predictions. They kept on making the predictions, and they kept on trying to make ground. But the Chelsea Shandies team was just too much for them, and it ended with them losing 4-0. But I do think the Philly Shuckles will bounce back, and they may be able to take down their next opponent. I'm not sure. I'm no mind reader, but we'll see what happens. The Chelsea Shandies played great this game. They knew what they needed, what their win condition was, Snorlax, and were able to use it to perfection. And Snorlax actually ends up being one of the MVPs, not the MVP, but one of. And overall, he played his other mods pretty well. Mega Gardevoir was a great, especially offensive threat that kept on pressuring some of his mods. Hitmontop was a pretty annoying mod against the Philly Shuckles, and the first time I've actually seen Hitmontop used well in League format. Gengar didn't really do much, neither did Landorus, and Vileplume was a great wall to handle things like Kingdra and Politoed and Rotom Wash. Overall, I thought this was a pretty good match, and I think the Chelsea Shandies are currently one of the best teams right now, and it's gonna be hard to dethrone them from that. But we will see what happens next. And lastly, we have the match of the week, in my opinion: the Toronto Tarantrums, the former champion, versus the Squid Malamars, who was a team that made it to playoffs last season. The Toronto Tarantrums brought the Porygon Z, Granbull, Victini, Tyrantrum, Clefable, and Mandibuzz, while the Squid Malamars brought Diggersby, Latias, Ferrothorn, Sylveon, Electivire, and Arcanine. And this match went into a close 1-0 in the Squid Malamar's favor. Now, this wasn't a minimally haxy match, and I'll go a little bit in depth in the match. But this is definitely a good sign of this season we have pretty crazy matches. So, basically, start of the match, we see some crazy tech moves come out. A bunch of fire type moves on the Tyrantrum side to take on Ferrothorn, and Ferrothorn kind of just dies in like 8 turns in. And then Granbull actually dies to a tech Gunshock from Diggersby. Diggersby does a lot of work in this game and actually got 5 kills in this game, which is pretty intense right there. But yeah. Also, a big problem that the Malamars actually had was against the Porygon Z, because there wasn't really much of a switch in the Square Malamars had to speak of. So it managed to kill off things like the Sylveon and the Electivire. However, speaking of Electivire, the Electivire was actually able to paralyze with, I believe, a Thunderbolt on the Clefable, which was gonna set up rocks. Now, these rocks come into major play later on. Would have come into major play later on in the match, but I'll talk about that once we get to the end. So Porygon Z is on this little rampage, kills some stuff, and then Latias comes to try and take it out, and Latias gets frozen, and it looks like it's over, but then just thaws out and kills up the Draco Meteor. So, emotional roller coasters. That's what freezes are, or just emotional pitfall, because you never thaw out sometimes. Anyway, Diggs is able to kill off Mandibuzz pretty easily. I think it was a sack. Victini is able to kill off Latias, which then gets destroyed by a quick attack from a Diggersby. And then Arcanine gets taken out by an outrage from the Toronto Tarantrums. Mascot, a Tyrantrum. And then it's Tyrantrum versus a Diggersby. It goes for the outrage. Outrage does 58.8% and leaves Diggersby on 4%. If rocks were up, it would have died, and the game would have been the Toronto Tarantrums. But because of the paralysis, the Squid Malamars are going to take the win in the narrow 1-0 with 4% by killing the Tyrantrum with an Earthquake. This is definitely a very close match. Hacks did come into play, but even so, it was still a amazing match to watch, and I have no doubt that the Toronto Tarantrums will bounce back. Mariner is a good coach. He won last season, and there's no doubt in my mind that he will not take this loss sitting down, and will go out and get a win next week, or maybe not. I think he's facing off against the Chelsea Shandies, so who knows? Maybe the Chelsea Shandies will win. I wouldn't doubt it, actually. As for the Squid Malamars, they played pretty well, actually. They played a bit poorly against the Porygon Z, but besides that, I think they planned and played pretty well. And overall, I think the Square Malamars are gonna make some noise this season. And I'm not sure if they're gonna make the playoffs. The division that the Square Malamars in, Toronto Tarantrums are in, and the Chelsea Shandies are in, they're all in the same division, and so one of them has to not make playoffs. And I am not sure who's not gonna make playoffs. But even so, this is a pretty hectic division, and I can't wait to see what battles come out next week for these guys. All right, so that'll conclude the matches for this week. Now let's move on to the standings. So with that being said, let us start off with the Ruby division. Now, the Ruby division is currently having tied for first place with the Atlanta Braves and the Middle Earth Mariners both having one win with a differential of 2, and the South Park Electrodes being in last place for that division with 1 loss and a differential of -2. Following that, we have the Sapphire division, with the Iowa Focus Energies leading the charge with 1 win and 0 losses with a +4 differential. Up next is the DMR Shadow Obstacles with 0 wins and 1 loss with the -2 differential. And finally, we have the Berkhamsted Bastions with a 0-1 win-loss record and a -4 differential. After that, we have the Chelsea Shandies leading the Diamond division with a 1 win, 0 loss, +4 differential. Then it's the Squim Malamars with a 1 win, 0 loss record and a +1 differential. And finally, the Toronto Tarantrums, not too far behind with a no win, 1 loss, -1 differential. After that, we have the Denver Dashers charging the first place in the Pearl division, 1 win, 0 losses with a +4 differential. After that is the Jackson Jump Bluffs and the Philly Struggles, both tied at last place in this division, with 0 wins and one loss with a -4 differential. Anyone can really win their division at this point, as well as anyone can really lock a wild card. It is only the first week, and first week is nothing to make assumptions about. One thing I will mention though is how people can make it into playoffs, because we may need to explain that. The way you can make it into playoffs is to either be the top person in your division, or to make a wild card, which is after you take the top people in each division, the next highest person in the conference, those being Hoenn Conference with Ruby and Sapphire, and Sinnoh Conference with Diamond and Pearl. Whoever is the next highest then makes it in. So in the end, we have a 6-person playoffs. And with recapping how to get into playoffs, I think we should now move on to the MVP listings. So let's move on to that, shall we? So it only shows 3 mons right now, the top 3 mons currently in the league, but I actually have a list of 10 ready for you guys. So at number 1, we have Diggersby from the Second Malamars, 5 kills and 0 deaths. First off, I'm going to mention that the differential is based off of the MVP race is based off of differential, not of kills, like the GBA does. We're basing off of differentials because it makes more sense to us. After that, we have Heatran of the Atlanta Braviers, 3 kills and 0 deaths. And then after that, we have Snorlax of the Chelsea Shandies, also with 3 kills and 0 deaths. By the way, the way we decide order is just alphabetically, so that's why Heatran is above Snorlax. After that, we have Hydreigon, 2 kills, 0 deaths of the Iowa Focus Energies, as well as the Iowa Focus Energies also contributing Magneton with 2 kills and 0 deaths. After that, we have Rotom of the Denver Dashers, 2 kills, 0 deaths. And then Talonflame of the Middle-earth Magmortars with 2 kills and 0 deaths. After that, we have Megalataria of the DMR Shadow Absols with two kills, 1 death. And then afterwards, we have the Azumarill of the South Park Electrodes, 2 kills, 1 death. And next, we have Kieran Black, 2 kills, 1 death of the Middle-earth Magmortars. And we actually have an 11th Mon, just barely out of reach, just because it's not there alphabetically. We have Zoroark with 2 kills and 1 death from the Denver Dashers. There are a lot of Mons you don't expect here, especially in the top 3. Would you expect a Snorlax, a Heatran? Even a Diggersby is kind of a stretch in league format to make it into the top 3. However, this is only week 1, and we are sure to see a lot of changes happen throughout the MVPs. We'll see some faces stay, but other faces will go, and thus is the cycle of the MVPs. With that being said, that will actually end off the video. But first, we're gonna go into one last segment. I don't actually have a slide for this, but I'm just gonna quickly go over our predictions on who is gonna win the next few matches of all the analysts. For me, I predict the matches for next week are the Atlanta Braviers versus the Middle Earth Magmortars, the South Park Electrodes versus the Iowa Focus Energies, the Berkhamsted Bastions versus the DMR Shadow Absols, the Jackson Jumpless versus the Philly Shuckles, the Denver Dashers versus the Square Malamars, and the Toronto Tarantos versus the Chelsea Shandies. My predictions on who's going to win that are the Atlanta Braviers will win against the Middle Earth Mortars, the Iowa Focus Energies will win against the South Park Electrodes, the Berkhamsted Bastions will win against the DMR Shadow Absols, the Philly Shuckles will win against the Jackson Jump Bluffs, the Square Malamars will beat the Denver Dashers, and the Chelsea Shandies will beat the Toronto Tyrantrums. Afterwards, we have Damon's picks. Let me just pull up Damon's picks real quickly. I should have had them prepared, but let's do it. All right. So after that, we have Damon's picks, which are Focus Energies will win their match against the South Park Electrodes. The Atlanta Braviers will beat the Middle Earth Marauders. The DMR Shadow Absols will actually, he predicts the DMR Shadow Absols to beat the Berkhamsted Bastions. The Denver Dashers will beat the Square Malamars. The Philly Shuckles will beat the Jackson Jumplefs, and the Chelsea Shandies will beat the Toronto Tyrantrums. Lastly, we have Socrates' picks, the guy who does the power rankings. He is predicting the Atlanta Braviers to beat the Middle Earth Mortars, the Berkhamsted Bastions to beat the DMR Shadow Absols, the Philly Shuckles to beat the Jackson Jumplefs, the Square Malamars to beat the Denver Dashers, the Iowa Focus Energies to beat the South Park Electrodes, and Mariner of the Toronto Tantrums will beat the Chelsea Shandies. The only one out of the three of us who thinks Mariner is going to win that one. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, good review. Glad to make someone happy with these videos on the PICA channel. And I hope you guys enjoyed all the content that will come out of the PICA channel, as well as all the battles that will happen during this season. This season looks like it's going to be a good one, and hopefully it stays like that. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed watching again, and I will see you guys in the next recap. Hopefully on Tuesday. See ya.